Why did you just have to ask me that? It's Rob Ayers.
I'm the guy first.
Captain Ayers.
So who you want to bring in first? Yeah, so that was the one you had in there for these. Yeah, it is. That was loud.
I'm hoping we can move through these pretty quick.
Stick it in the microwave. It'll take long enough for the presentation.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know how you did that.
I don't know. Cannot be recreated.
Oh, there it is.
Just waiting for the nod from Jackie.
Something.
Jackie, we good? All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our city council meeting for Wednesday, February 27th, 2019. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be offered to us by Captain Rob Ayers from our fire department.
Standing already? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Cap. Thank you, Captain. We appreciate that. We always appreciate having our public service officers here at our meetings, so thank you for being here. We'll move on to any disclosures of conflict of interest by the council today?
None.
None? Okay. Any comments or recognitions by the council?
I just, we were able to have our employee movie night. I know there was a lot of effort that went into that on many different fronts, but that's a great event, especially when you stand there and see that theater chock full of nothing but employees and their families. It was a great event. It's one that's, I think, enjoyed almost as much as anything throughout the year. But just want to say thanks to all the effort that went into that. It was another fun night.
And on top of that, we say thank you to the public service officers that were not able to attend for the various reasons, whether they were serving our community or dealing with an issue that we had come up yesterday. So we thank them very much, and we'll make sure we get them involved as well.
One thing I want to say is I want to thank the council for coming and attending last night. That means a lot to our employees, our Herriman family, so I do appreciate that. Wanted to get that on the record. I was going to do it in the work meeting, but I didn't cross that one off. Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, we will move on to the public comment section of our meeting. Audience members may bring any item to the mayor and council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law does prohibit the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. If there are items that you'd like to discuss that do not have a public hearing, since we have quite a few items, now would be the time to bring that up. So if you'd like to speak, please feel free to come up to the dais at this time. Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public comment section of our meeting. Are there any council, board, and committee reports? Nope. Okay, I'm just flying through this today. I'll accept a motion on the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second?
Okay, Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. That motion passes. Right, we'll move on to item 9.1, discussion and consideration of an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2017-07, authorizing the exemption to certain impact fees with respect to the development known as Anthem Center, and authorizing the exemption of the roadway facilities impact fee with respect to the WinCo to be developed in the Anthem Center. Gordon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're going to be talking this presentation is going to take care of 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, and 9.4. They're all interrelated, so this one presentation applies to them all, but if you want me back, I can certainly answer questions as we go through this. So we're excited that we're starting to move forward with the main portion of the Anthem Commercial Center. This is a 50-acre commercial project, and 40 acres of it has been has taken a little bit of time to get going. Initially, the developer had sold 18 acres to Walmart to build a super Walmart on the site. After a period of time, it was determined that Walmart had abandoned the project. After they abandoned the project, there was two critical elements the city had to do with the developer. The developer needed to buy back the 18 acres that was owned by Walmart, and then find an anchored commercial developer to come in and get the site anchored, another grocer. And so today is the culmination of that, and we're going to kind of go through that. So in your packet, this first one, 9.1, we're going to talk about, there we go. This is the area of the CDA. It kind of gives an outline. It shows the commercial and some residential pads that are part of this. And this is kind of critical because all the funding we're talking about comes specifically from the site and stays in the area. It doesn't come from anywhere else in the city. So I'm going to explain, first of all, this impact fee waiver. So what this does if you approve this tonight, the first thing it does is we already had a 100% waiver with the Anthem development. This will stop or cancel that 100% waiver of their water and transportation impact fees. The second thing this does is it gives a transportation of impact fee waiver of approximately $400,000 to WinCo. So this one document does those two things. Now I want to go through the rest of the documents to see how this relates. So we are also going to have an agreement with Anthem. This agreement is only going to be between the RDA agency and Anthem Development. We already have one in place that was for the Walmart centered development, and this is now for the WinCo. So we're restating this, and these are some of the key points of them. The first is we're going to pay the Anthem Development 75% of the transportation impact fees collected on the rest of the development, other than the WinCo, from the sales tax collected from the retail area, except for the WinCo, to reimburse him for the impact fees. The reason for this is that this is an incentive to get the commercial going. This has a sunset clause in 2023, so this only gives them a short period of time to take advantage of getting this reimbursement. And so this is incentive to help get other commercial going there besides the WinCo. The second thing this document does is it outlines how we give the TIF back to the Anthem commercial. This is from the property tax increment. What the city will do is the city gets to keep the first $50,000 that are collected off the TIF for the first 5 years, and then after that, and then the remaining portion we split, giving 73.3% of the TIF to Anthem Commercial. This is to help them pay for the roads, the water, the storm drain, all the infrastructure associated with building the development. They're required to supply the city with their costs, and then we would reimburse them. But under no circumstances would we ever pay more than that. So if their costs exceed that, they do not get reimbursed for those. So that's the second piece, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the last piece is when we were working with them to bring the Winco to the Anthem commercial, Winco had already selected another piece of property elsewhere. And in order to meet the price for the land that Winco needed to in order to land it at Anthem Development, there was a $400,000 discrepancy. So what we are doing with this agreement with Anthem is through the sale tax generated by Winco over a 5-year period, we would reimburse them $400,000 with their sales tax for reducing the land cost for Winco to come in. So that is the Anthem development, and that's going to be in the RDA meeting at the end of this city council tonight. Now I'm going to talk about the Winco agreement. This one's a little more simplistic, and what this is when Winco had already settled on the site before we brought them to Herriman. They had costs that they were associated. There was delay in coming to Herriman because of the buyback provision with Walmart. And so the city, this agreement, if it's approved, would agree to reimburse from the sales tax generated by Winco. Again, it's in the first 5 years to pay them for the cost of leaving their first site to come to Herriman. Those sales tax have to come from the city because they don't come to the RDA. So there's going to be an interlocal agreement that's going to be both in the city council and in the RDA meeting that's going to allow the city to give these funds to the RDA that will again transfer them to Winco. And we'll go through that in the next slide. So now when the city is giving up these funds, these tax dollars, it has to have a way to replace them. They have to come in from somewhere. And so this is the way that the city is getting their funds back. So the impact fees, the 75% that we estimated giving back to Anthem is approximately $300,000 if they get everything done by 2023 and everything comes through. If they don't get it done, it becomes less than that. But what happens is the RDA is going to pay that money back to the city for the sales tax used to pay for that 75%. Also, the $400,000 that we're going to be using the sales tax to give to the Anthem development for paying down the property price, that again is going to be paid back by the RDA to the city, as well as the $500,000 to Winco and the $400,000 impact fee. Where that money comes from is from the TIF. You'll see a little equation to the left-hand side of the slide. The city will generate from TIF about $325,000. And so you can see the math as we subtract out the $300,000 for the impact fees, the $400,000.
$3,250,000, right?
Let's say it again.
$3,250,000.
Oh yeah,
right?
3 million. Oh yeah, 3.2 million. Let's add one more zero in there. Makes the math work way better.
A little better.
Thank you. Otherwise, we've been wiped out at the first one. So at the end, the city will end up with a net in the RDA of about 1.6 million. That money, the city will probably recall to help fund. We put the $3 million road in, and that will pay a portion of the cost that we spent on the road for the Anthem development. So that agreement will become later between the RDA and Herriman City. That is not part of any of the agreements that we're taking to you tonight. So what I want to do is run you through the legal jargon. Now, our city attorney presented this last week in the work meeting. I'm going to try to do it equal justice. I've got a water bottle here. These are his words, and I will try to go through this fairly quickly. Okay, I'm ready. This is the impact fee waiver we first discussed. This waiver replaces the old Anthem waiver that we had previously that was for 100% of the impact fees other than the Walmart. What it does now is eliminates that, but it does waive the transportation impact fee for an 82,500 square foot building or the Winco grocery store. The approximate amount is about $400,000, and they have to obtain their building permit before October 31st, 2020. This waiver is based upon a broad public purpose. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of state code. So in the state code, it provides that if an impact fee is exemption is granted for a broad public purpose, then we have to find a source to replace those impact fees. And that's where we showed you that the TIF was going to come back and replace that. And so it will be reimbursed with one of the interlocal agreements to come first. So that's the impact fee discussion 9.1 or 4.1. 9.1.
9.1?
Yep. So you will see this. This is the first item you'll vote on the city council agenda. The next is the interlocal between the agency and the city to replace the waived fees. So the agency agrees to pay the city the amount of the WinCo waived impact fee. The payment of this reimbursement will come from the property tax TIF generated from the project area, and these come from the different taxing entities. The term is 25 years. The city, you can pay any time, but that's the length the city has, or the agency has to give it back. You will see this agreement twice, once on the city council agenda and once on the agency agenda. This is the anchor tenant agreement, in other words, WinCo. The agency agrees to pay WinCo sales rebate in the amount not to exceed $500,000 and never more than $200,000 in a given calendar year. The source of the sales tax is the point of sales generated by the WinCo store itself, so it won't come from anywhere else in the city. Payment will begin 1 year after the city issues its occupancy and will end either in 5 years or 2026. Payments will be made monthly. You will see this on the RDA agency meeting agenda this evening.
Gordon, on that, just going back, it says where it will end 5 years from the first payment or October 31st. That would also be, or if that $500,000 is met earlier than either of those, correct?
Oh, yeah, so once the 500,000 is met, then it ends as well.
Okay.
So it can end quicker. The city agrees to pay, okay, this is an interlocal between the city and the agency on the anchor tenant. The city agrees to pay the RDA agency the point of sale sales tax generated by WinCo. The payments will begin 1 year after the city certifies the occupancy, or 5 years the earlier, same kind of language. The amount, did I just redo this? The amount is limited to the sales tax due and owing to WinCo's pursuant agreement, not to exceed the cumulative amount of $500,000 and never more than $200,000 in a given calendar year. You will see this agreement twice. This will be on the city council agenda as well as the agency agenda tonight. Now this is the Anthem agreement restated. So the agreement we had approved a couple years ago was with the Walmart. Now we have the WinCo, so this is the new agreement. This agreement restates the previous one, replaces it as well. There are two buckets of money we're going to talk about. The first is the TIF, point of sale sales tax. So on the TIF, beginning with the year the agency begins to pay sales tax increment to WinCo, we will, the city will collect from the TIF $50,000 every year to $250,000. So that will be the first bucket. We'll be collecting that money. The remainder will be split this way. We will split the remaining portion of the money. 73.33% will go to Anthem Development, up to this $11,660,300 obligation. So if the TIF ends up being less, that number becomes less. If once we pay that, any additional money is kept by the agency, and that's the percentage that we go forward with.
And again, just for clarity for those watching and looking at that huge number, those are reimbursable infrastructure expenses. They have to provide receipts for those expenses. This isn't just money that goes to them for profit.
Thanks, Councilman Henderman. So this is specific for improvements that they're doing on the site, including roads, water, storm drain, other infrastructure, the landscaping, those kinds of things that we're requiring of them, street lights, stuff like that. The 26.67% remaining portion will be given to the agency. That's the RDA agency to the city. And that's the estimated $3 million we showed you on that slide. Okay, and then it continues. Now the sales tax increment works this way. If WinCo is substantially completed by November 2020 and is subject, so if it gets done, then what we will do is we're going to provide to the Anthem development $200,000. But what they're saying here is that WinCo is in first order. So we will pay WinCo out completely their $500,000. Once they're paid out, then Anthem Development gets their $400,000 from the sales tax of WinCo. And that should take about 5 years to pay both of them out. In addition, the agency will pay from the sales tax of the rest of the area, not excluding WinCo, the 75% of the water and road impact fee collected for the center. But then again, this is for impact fees. He has till July 31st, 2023 to have paid those impact fees to the city. Other than that, then that ends.
Sorry, just another quick note. In the work meeting, this is the one that I was mentioning that began August of 2018.
Correct.
For a 5-year period.
The
Clock's already ticking
running.
on this one.
Okay, you will see this on the agency agenda. This is not a city council approval. This is an interlocal between the city and the agency. This is the same one. The city agrees to pay the agency the point of sales tax generated by WinCo. The payments will begin, so this is between the city and the RDA. The payments will begin 1 year after the city issues the certification of occupancy with WinCo, so it meets the requirements so that the agency has the money to pay both Anthem Commercial and WinCo. And the amount will be due to the sales tax owed to the Anthem Center, just as we described in our agreements with Anthem. Let's see. The agency agrees to pay the Anthem Center the point of sales tax incremented for the impact fees of the 75%. So this is an agreement that the city is going to give those sales tax to the RDA to pay for those 75% of the value of the impact fees collected from those dates. Though this agreement you'll see twice, once on the city council agenda and once in the RDA. I just wanted to pull up and show you kind of the plat, what it looks like. I don't have a mouse, but I'm pointing on the screen here. WinCo's kind of the big rectangular one in the middle. Then they're going to have a number of pads that will come around the property. They have an 17-acre pad to the south that they're working on, but the roads and everything will all be constructed when WinCo comes in. This plat will go to the Planning Commission on the 21st, March 21st, I believe, is the Planning Commission meeting. And that's when you'll see this plat, the site plan, and everything else will be going to them. WinCo, in fact, was in our office today working with our building department on the details, so we expect that to go fairly quickly. And that's the rendering they have sent us. So we're all very excited about it. This is showing kind of how the commercial pad lays out and how that's going to be situated. And it's important for us to get this commercial pad, this commercial area going. We have loved to seen it going 2 years ago until Walmart kind of pulled out. But we've had a great developer that's been diligent in getting us a new anchor, and John Gus is here over there. So thank you. And so these have been the critical points in order to make this happen. Anyway, so questions? John Brems has reviewed all this with the, go ahead.
Gordon, so in all of the numbers, I want you to crystallize down what this means for the residents of Herriman. The fact that even though we've got an outflow of money in and out, that in fact the city is made whole at the end of the day, and more importantly, this is money that we're shifting back and forth that doesn't even materialize but for the development itself. So it's not coming out of our existing coffers. It is, in fact, a large benefit that comes because of our partnership with the developer. So if you could just distill it down to, this is great news. And let's talk about what that means in terms of revenue generation and not pulling any money from our existing for
No, that's a good point. This property, this 40 acres has sat.
I might have just explained that.
You did. No, this 40
you
acres
could just
is-
ditto. You could just ditto if you wanted. Sorry.
No, that was good.
I
No,
answered my own question.
that is excellent.
I actually like to take a little stab at it, if you don't mind. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think where maybe those of us that aren't involved in this on a daily basis, it seems, would, and quite frankly, I didn't know before I got involved in all this. I think the starting point for the public at large is the CDA RDA, the agency, right? So it's a commercial development area or a redevelopment area that has to be approved by the county and the other participants in property tax. So if, again, this is something these guys get tired of hearing me talk about all the time, but if you look at your property tax bill, your property tax does not go to the city, it goes to the county, school, sewer, fire, police, etc. Though each of those entities has to agree to participate in this agency for this particular area. So if you think of some of the things that are in the news lately, the Amazon thing in New York, this is what they're fighting about, is this kind of tax money that goes to these projects, and is it worth it to bring these things to the area? So when we talk about the city being made whole, it's from that property tax would go to those agencies, those entities, they have agreed to forego that money for this period of time to encourage these types of developments to come in to help facilitate them. And that money that is received by the agency has to be spent in that area during that period of time for infrastructure, for improvements. So it's not enriching these companies that come in. It's being spent to pay for the roads, et cetera, to make it more viable for them to do so. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the structure. First thing with the agency. The second component is the sales tax. That is the one thing that the city does have discretion over and can control. So we're agreeing, what we're pledging is that amount of sales tax generated from those, specifically in this case from WinCo or from the non-WinCo entities for that period of time, linked through the agency as a percentage of those fees. So we're not encumbering ourselves. We're not indebted in any way. Everything is based on the performance of the commercial development. That.
Yep.
I think that's very
I feel
well
like mine
explained.
was more crystallized.
Well,
Probably was.
the other point I'd like to make, and this is when it finally clicked for me, was that the reason you have these agencies and you go through this process is because you're trying to create a tax base. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to encourage this development of our tax base. Taxes on something that's not developed is zero. We get no sales tax from when there's nobody there. The idea behind these agencies is that we all work together to incentivize the development of these commercial projects to start creating sales tax that did not previously exist. So there's new money coming in to our city that we did not have in the future. And if we didn't go through this process, probably would not, because we wouldn't be able to secure this type of a business. And we're only using the sales tax from that development and splitting the new sales tax up to benefit all parties involved. The CDA is just an intermediary to make this happen. It's really the city that's doing it. We're having to do it through this specific process.
And it only impacts our point of sales tax also. So out of the 1%, half is point of sale, half is based on population. So it's only zeroing further into only the point of sales.
Yes. So staff recommends approval of all four of 9.1, 2, 3, and 4 in the work meeting, and then, or in the regular meeting, and then we'll talk about the other 5 in the.
So this is us just agreeing with ourselves, basically, is what we're doing.
So if you have any more questions, certainly be more than happy to answer those.
I just have one last comment, just to commend our staff for putting this together. I know that the graphic of the arrows going everywhere, maybe it's a little confusing, but for those of us that have spent a bunch of time, you know, nitpicking through all the details, we really appreciate the amount of time that everybody spent on this. And the structure that it is pretty impressive. I'm really, really happy with how it's turned out, so thank you very much.
Yeah, and just for public consumption, I had to scratch my head a lot on this big stack of agreements they gave us a couple of weeks ago. So just understand that there's been a lot of study that has gone into this, well more than the discussion that's been had here.
Yes.
A brief comment too for myself. One, we've heard a lot, obviously, from our residents, and I think us as a council have been very focused on commercial development. We all know that that's something that has been needed in our community, and we thought we were well on our way several years ago. And there's certainly been factors and frustrations and all those things that obviously we have not seen what was originally proposed in this area materialize. But really my point that I want to make is that these just don't happen overnight. Securing these large anchors to come in and to set up these agencies to be able to help this development. These things take time, and in some cases, an immense amount of time. And you can see by the agreements that we just went through how complicated they can be in order for that to happen. And this, again, the original development here started really long before most of us that are even on the council now. And again, some setbacks in there and some hurdles that we had to overcome to get to the point to where we could move this back forward. And we've all been focused very hard on it, and we've had one great partner in the developer to be able to continue to work on this, to continue to overcome those hurdles that were placed before us. We've had great partners in the agency that have agreed to the financing components that are in there. And for me, most importantly, we have some incredible staff. In fact, seeing Heather at the movie last night, I believe that she's worked so much on this, she absolutely had no voice last night. So maybe that's from yelling at Gordon. I don't know. We'll have to get that from her later. But again, you can see the complexity based on the agreements that are in place here, what it takes to get one of these commercial anchors, these commercial bases that do so much for our community to actually take hold and to move forward. And this has been a long, long time in the works. And I just want to say thank you to the staff for all the work that they've done, because it is an immense amount of work, and our community will shortly start to reap the benefits of that. So thanks, Gordon.
Ready to make a motion, Mayor?
I'm ready to accept it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-02, repealing ordinance number 2017-07, authorizing the exemption to certain impact fees with respect to the development known as Anthem Center, and authorizing the exemption of roadway facilities impact fee with respect to the Winco to be developed in the Anthem Center.
I will second.
Okay, motion and a second. Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I will vote yes. I will accept motion for 9.2.
I will make a motion to approve resolution number R10-2019, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between Herriman City and the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City in regards to the funding of waived impact fees.
I will second.
Okay, motion and a second. Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion passes. I'll accept a motion on 9.3.
The motion to approve resolution number R11-2019, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between Herriman City and the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City with respect to sales tax Winco. Sales tax coming from Winco.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. That motion passes. And we'll go ahead and accept a motion for 9.4 as well.
You know I want to.
You're on a roll.
I will make a motion to approve resolution number R12-2019, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between Herriman City and the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City. Did I just read this one? No. With respect to sales tax non-Winco. There we go.
There you go.
Difference.
I will second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion passes. It's a big deal. We're excited.
It's a very exciting development.
And
Thank you.
if you do stick around for the development agency, you'll get to hear us do a lot of these again.
John wants to say
If
something?
you guys are okay with that.
Yeah,
we
please.
Invite the developer, John
Please.
Gust, up to just a moment.
I just wanted to say thanks for your patience. It's taken a long time. Fortunately, we hire good attorneys. When we did the Walmart agreement, we put a buyback clause in the agreement
Thank goodness.
because they would not give us a covenant to open a store. That's just, they won't do it. And so, but we said, okay, give us the buyback clause. And it came 22 months after we purchased it, which that day came at the last week of November. So by the time we finished out with Winco and got everything done, we gave the Walmart the buyback about 30 days ago, and they'll close with us next week. And Winco has started the drawings already, so I would say by July they would probably be in the ground. And so, which is pretty exciting. So we ended up having some good attorneys where we had the buyback clause. There was no argument from them. And they really have moved forward. I think the thing that is really kind of exciting, where the Winco is situated, is where we had the other mid-sized box stores. There's no market for those guys anymore. They're all up at Centerkill now, and they really have really cheap rents that they're giving those folks. And it might end up being a boneyard before it's done, because those guys are changing. But what we're doing now is this center, I believe, is set up what's in the marketplace today, and will be successful. But America First, we've closed with them on the site. They're coming. JCW is doing such big numbers. They've even bought the pad next to us to put another building in and for more parking for their store. But he said it's doing about 30 or 40% better than any other store that he has.
Right.
So it kind of gives you the idea. But when we did the demographic report to get it in front of Winco, to talk them out of South Jordan and to come over here, the brokers indicated that they'd never seen it before. But what happened is by doing the demographic report, in the demographic report it said this is ground zero for growth. And that's what did the trick. So I appreciate your patience, and thanks for your help, and you guys have been great. Appreciate it.
John,
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
On behalf of the council, I'd like to thank you as well as Winco for working with us for so long, and specifically with the timelines that we requested as far as getting those sunset clauses so that we could get that incentive moving and going very fast. You've been great to work with. And we
and the last point, we take great pride in sticking with you guys, and our partner, Doug Young, has just been great. Obviously, waiting these 2 years was a great cost to us. You're carrying land, you're carrying, we had to put all the money in for the site improvements in escrow, which was about $2 million. So, and they wouldn't release it, so we've been paying interest on $2 million for that 22 months, because that's how kind of the game that they play. But so it's taken a lot of time and a lot of effort, but you guys stuck with us, and we appreciate it.
Well, I think it's maybe good to note that 22 months was not your fault or ours or Winco's. It was because Walmart had actually purchased the property. They had actually come in and gotten their site approvals, et cetera, and they decided to change their corporate structure, not move ahead, and then they wouldn't release the property.
And what's funny about it, we had to, they did all their reports, their store, they did all their core drilling and environmental studies. We had to reimburse them for all of that, which was another $50,000 or $60,000 beyond the purchase price. But fortunately, when they wrote the agreement, we wrote it out that we got to buy it back for exactly what they paid for it. So that came out okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we'll move on to item 9.5, discussion and consideration of a resolution authorizing an exception to the commercial design standards for the Vasa Fitness Center building elevations. Michael.
Thank you. And as the council knows from our work session, the applicant is here tonight to answer any of your questions. Again, this is a resolution for council consideration for an exception to our commercial design standards for property located at 13366 South, 5600 West. This is for a new Vasa Fitness Center, which the the council understands is an unusual request in that VASA very often looks for properties that they can repurpose and remodel. In that they are proposing to build a brand new store within our community is a very unusual and I think desirable request. This was presented before the Planning Commission as a conditional use. It was approved by the Planning Commission. However, our current city code does require that any exception to the commercial design standards be reviewed and considered by the City Council. This is an orientation of the site. Again, you can see it just north of 134th South. It is an interior commercial parcel. This is a picture of the site plan with the parking lot towards the front, outside of the front doors of the site, towards the east. A little bit closer view. It was mentioned previously that the area between the residential property and the building on the west is actually all landscaping. There is a sidewalk just for emergency egress purposes, which is required by fire code and accessibility. These were the elevations that were presented to the Planning Commission. The standard is we're looking for 60% masonry on all sides of the building. The Commission interpreted the code that where we do not want to achieve that 60% masonry at the expense of glass, because we do have a lot of glazing on the main elevation of this building, they recommended that we count the glazing towards the minimum masonry requirement. However, even using that interpretation, we still had less than the desired percentages for the sides and the rear elevation of the building. And so as was noted in the report, the Commission did recommend approval, but they did want to see some additional masonry on the rear elevation. Specifically, you can see these, I forget that this doesn't show the images, but the rear pilasters or the engaged columns has masonry at the very base, and then the rest of it is a stucco system. The Commission recommended those columns be extended all the way up to essentially the cornice line or the roof line, which would increase some masonry on the rear of the building. The applicants studied that issue, and you can see in this image that they did raise that up to about essentially the first floor height. That's about 10 feet now above the ground where they're having those masonry pillars. And they made a few other changes, and in the staff report there's a narrative that they've included where they've analyzed how much masonry and glazing they're providing on each building elevation. The front elevation is about 60%, and then I'm just turning to it. The side facades are 40%, and the rear facade is just under 20% at 18%. So again, this is their response to the Planning Commission. This is VASA's request to you for this exception, and they're here tonight again to answer any of your questions if you have anything further you want to learn from the applicant.
Or just invite them up, see if they have anything else.
Would the applicant like to come up and if they have anything to add?
Good evening. I'm Rick Sander. I'm the architect for Galloway.
Do you have anything you'd like to add based on what was already said, or you just kind of that was the gist of it?
Sure. I'm not quite certain. I might have my understanding mistaken, but I believe the requirement was 60% on the front, 40 on the sides, and 20 on the back. And yes,
that's correct.
Similarly, we were trying to achieve those goals with a combination of masonry and glazing. Glazing does kind of activate the facade, and that's definitely a desirable thing for architects and communities as a whole. So the main point of that was to combine the two. If you did provide a 60% masonry on the front facade, along with the 29% glazing, you'd pretty much be left with nothing else, which doesn't add for much variety, as is also a requirement for the ordinances. We are a tad shy on the backside at 18%, primarily due to incremental changes. You can't really change things at 1.5 inch levels. You kind of have to bring it up to the next step. So we wanted to maintain the primacy of the front elevation and then recede to the back. So,
Any questions for the applicant?
None for me.
You have a seat we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any
Council.
discussion by the council?
I've got a clarifying question for Michael, maybe. The ordinance says the city council may grant an exception to the criteria for a building to this criteria for a building that is part of a large commercial project that has approved design guidelines and is greater than 40,000 square feet. This building's 56,000 square feet, so it meets that criteria. Do we have design guidelines?
So there are design guidelines for this property, yes.
Just want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
Those are doing our job.
And I'll just make the same comment that I made in our work meetings. We discussed this previously, and that is that, one, I very much appreciate the work of our planning commission. That you can tell that they've been very detailed and thorough in their review of this project and have required those things as per our code. And so they do a great job, and I appreciate the work they've done. I generally am not one that likes to vary from our standards. But there is obviously the opportunity to ask for an exception in our code. So for me, it comes down to when is that exception appropriate to ask for? And because of the placement and the explanation that has been given, again, the backside of this building, not that it's less desirable to look at, but because of the location, it doesn't front, or the back of it isn't up against one of our streets, such as some of them may be in the Anthem development area, those types of things. It is up against some commercial and residential area. There is a little bit of an elevation change there. For me, and again, the fact that we are slightly below what is recommended on that rear structure.
And there's no access from the rear of the
And
building.
there's no vehicular access back there, absolutely. Again, for me, this would be one of those times that I think is appropriate for them to ask for that exception. And for me, in this case, I believe that I'm okay with granting that exception.
I'd agree with those comments. I won't belabor the point I always make, which is the same. I don't like exceptions, but in this case, this is really what it's for, and I view the exception as very minor, especially being part of those discussions, hearing the deliberations from the Planning Commission when this exception was put in place. There was talk of, can we use glass, et cetera, the combination. I think that fits, and really using that criteria, we're really only talking about the couple percentage on the back of the building, so.
Yep, agreed.
I don't really have any objections.
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution number R13-2019, approving the exception to the commercial design criteria for Vasa Fitness Center.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. We appreciate the efforts that you guys have put into it. Thank you very
We're
much.
excited.
Is it going to be 24 hours, or is it going to be hourly?
Just get it built.
Just get a bill.
It'll be open every time you want to go work out.
The name is not 24 hours.
All right. We will move to item 9.6, discussion and consideration of an ordinance declaring approximately 88 acres of real property located west of Mountain View Corridor, north of 126 South, east of the future alignment of Herriman Main Street, and south of Midas Creek, drainage in Herriman as surplus. Establish that consideration for the surplus shall be based on public policy factors. Gordon.
All right, thank you. Man, you're getting a lot of me tonight. This is a declaration from the City Council that will allow the city to sell 88 acres of real property. There's about 65 acres in our name, and then we have the remaining portion under contract. But under this surplus process, we can get this all under contract, or all surplus, so we can sell this property. So I'm going to explain a little bit about where this property is. The city has purchased the two red portions. One of them, the 9.83 acres, we have an agreement because we use somebody else's money that we either give them that property, but we can't do that without the surplusing, and or we give them their money back. So that's that piece. The large 52, actually it's 55 acres, so there's a little discrepancy there. That is also property we have with our money. We are entertaining several people that have come to us to purchase it. We'll talk about that. And then the Bowles property, which is those 4 parcels you can see there. Each of those we have under contract. The first closing would take place in April, and then there would be a second closing in January of next year. So the purpose of this is that we can entertain offers and sell this property off. The recommendation for the minimum bid is that we sell each of these properties for no less than what we bought them for, and that these will all come back to you as individual sales. And again, the broader public purpose policy is what you'll be considering when we make that decision to sell property. Any questions?
Nope.
Any comments or discussion by the council?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve ordinance 2019-03, declaring approximately 88 acres of Mountain View Corridor, north 12600 South Street, east of the future alignment of Herriman Main Street, and south of Midas Creek drainage in Herriman, Salt Lake County as surplus. Establish that consideration for the surplus property shall be based on public policy factors identified.
Second.
Okay, is that sufficient to set that minimum bid? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion passes. All right, we have for our upcoming meetings, March 7th is our next Planning Commission meeting at 7 p.m. March 13th is our next City Council meeting. Our work meeting will begin at 5 p.m. and our City Council meeting will begin at 7. We do have the cabaret coming up tomorrow for our Herriman City Arts group puts that together. So if you'd like to attend that, please do so. And then March 1st and 2nd as well, and those will be here at City Hall. With that, I will accept a motion to go out of to close our general meeting, and then we can go into our redevelopment agency, our agency meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. So we are done with our city council meeting. So we will now have a separate meeting that we will begin right now. That's for the other part of all of those things that we were working at. We will be functioning as the Special Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City. So we are the board of that agency as well, but we have to have a separate meeting, and so that's what we're going to do at this time, acting as that meeting. So we will go on to item 1, a motion for review and outline of the finalization process to approve the minutes of February 27th.
Okay, so,
We got to do minutes first.
We got to do
Gordon.
minutes first, Gordon.
pardon?
This is minutes.
Oh, the minutes.
I'll motion to have the minutes of the February 22nd, 2019 be prepared and distributed to each member of the redevelopment agency board. Board will have 10 days to review the minutes and submit any changes to the secretary. If after 10 days there are no changes, the minutes will stand approved. If there are changes, the process will be followed until all changes are made and the board is in agreement.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The motion passes. Item 2A, discussion and consideration of a resolution approving the interlocal cooperative agreement between the Community Development Renewal Agency of Herriman City and Herriman City.
All right, I'll be fairly brief since you've now heard this multiple times. And as part of the city council, the impact fee waiver has already been acted on by the city, so we're not going to discuss that. The Anthem agreement is going to be approved in this meeting. This is agreement between the RDA agency and the Anthem development. And these are the quick analysis. It's 75% sales tax from the Anthem commercial to pay 75% of the impact fees. This is the amount of the TIF that they'll get from the RDA over the life of the TIF if they can provide the receipts for the work done, including roads, water, infrastructure, streetlights, and the things that are put into the plan. And then this also reimburses them for reducing the cost to get Winco to land in the property. This will be seen tonight and voted on with the RDA. The Winco agreement that you'll have in the RDA is the $500,000 to pay for their cost from moving from their previous location to the Herriman location. And then the remaining, there's 3 interlocals between the city and the RDA. The city has already voted and approved them. And this basically, as the RDA board, you're agreeing to give your portion of your $3 million TIF back to the city to reimburse for the sales tax you're using for the incentives. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that.
Okay.
If there's any questions.
Any further discussion or questions by the council?
I think on item D, we'd need to change and to or.
There was a bad word.
2.1.
That's a bad word.
Great catch by Councilman.
And it was
Zorn.
only a 3-letter word.
We only want a 2-letter word instead of a 3-letter word on 4.2.1 of number D.
Yes.
On D.
D.
On D, 4.2.1, there's a section in there that says reimbursement. It needs to say or instead of and.
Section 4.1.2.
Oh, sorry.
About halfway down, agencies in bold lettering, agencies tax increment share, and paid as described below, not to exceed the lesser of the reimbursable costs or, rather than and.
That's a very good catch.
An aggregate amount of $11,600,300
I was losing sleep
Sherry.
over it.
It may have caused Sherry a minor stroke worrying about that one.
So is that,
And I'm glad she saw it because I just saw the lesser of and I glossed over the other word.
so is that a motion, Councilwoman?
Well, let's
We
go in
always
order.
Probably should start in order, but I just wanted to
Okay.
bring that point up.
I'll start with the A. So, motion to approve resolution R 2019-02, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City and Herriman City.
Second.
Okay, a motion second. Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. I'll accept the motion on B.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R 2019-03, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City and Herriman City with respect to Winco sales tax.
Second.
Motion and a second. Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion passes. I'll accept the motion on C.
I'll do C. Motion to approve resolution number R 2019-04, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement between the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Herriman City and Herriman City with respect to non-Winco sales tax.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion passes. And then D.
So make a motion to approve resolution number R 2019-05, approving an amended and restated participation agreement with Anthem Center LLC with the changes that was noted previously to section 4.1.2.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Nicole?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. That motion passes. And then E.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R 2019-06, approving an amended and restated participation agreement with Winco Center LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. Jared?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion passes. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're going back into work meeting?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we will go back into our work meeting in the other room. That's a big catch.
Well,
I know.
did say
They're not accepting reservations yet, or